And you're also going to hear people say that this is an attack on the oil and gas sector and by extension on Alberta. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I can share that with the fact that our government has been working hard for years, hand in hand with industry leaders in our province, with partners, Indigenous peoples, to ensure that we can both grow our economy and protect the environment. Why do we need to do that? Well, we have to stay competitive in a global energy market that more and more demands low emissions. And I know, as Jonathan and Stephen alluded to, that we've lived through dramatic increases in severe weather events over the last several years. I couldn't go out Monday of the long weekend of May or September in Edmonton because the air quality index was 11.5. 11 plus, actually. And so for people who are now having to stay in their homes during forest fire season when they're raging because they simply can't breathe the air, that is a cue to all of us that we have to do better, and that includes the oil and gas sector. So heat domes, atmospheric rivers, forest fires, smoke-filled days, and devastating floods. And even in the middle of COVID, folks, the number one thing that people in Edmonton Centre asked me to work on was fighting climate change in the middle of COVID. And when I'm on the doors still now, that's what they're asking us to do. It's still the number one issue. A majority of Albertans want us to do this, and certainly a majority of people in Edmonton Centre want us to do this. And so for the safety of our communities and our families, we need to address the threat of climate change. Now, at the same time, many of us have a family member, a friend, or a neighbor who works in oil and gas. And these jobs are important, and we're going to protect workers. Our climate goals are completely aligned with growing our industry and building an economy that works for everyone. How do we do this? Well, our government over the past few years has unlocked billions of dollars in investment in the economy of today and tomorrow through incentives for carbon capture, utilization and storage, and other emerging technologies. Jonathan mentioned the Dow Chemical investment. $11 billion, 7,000 construction jobs, 500 permanent jobs after that in the Fort Saskatchewan area of Edmonton. But we can add to that. We've got Air Products building the largest net zero hydrogen plant in Northeast Edmonton. We've got Heidelberg Materials that's going to produce the first net zero cement plant in the world by burying their carbon in a CCUS, by putting their carbon in a CCUS stack. We are third in the world in foreign direct investment right now. What does that mean? Thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs for workers from coast to coast to coast. These are good-paying, long-term, middle-class jobs. And that attraction of billions of dollars of investment is exactly how we know that the plan is working. Make no mistake, we can do big things in this country, and Alberta workers, and the ingenuity that I see in my province and across the country can continue to lead the way and position us for great things.
This past summer, we experienced the most destructive forest fire season in Canadian history, by far. It forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of people. It destroyed homes and livelihoods and blanketed our cities and our towns in clouds of smoke, certainly including here in Ottawa. The policy we are announcing today is one of an array of policies that Canada has been putting into place to do what we can to slow and eventually stop the planet from burning up. While climate change is indeed an existential threat to the future of the human race, it is also rapidly transforming the global economy and global finance in ways that are creating enormous economic opportunity for those who approach the transition to a low-carbon future in a thoughtful, determined, and focused manner. In releasing the World Energy Outlook 2023, Dr. Birol, the Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, stated, and I quote, "The transition to clean energy is happening worldwide, and it's unstoppable. It is not just a question of if, it is just a matter of how soon." The global energy transformation is both an environmental imperative to protect the planet for future generations and an economic opportunity on a scale similar to the Industrial Revolution. Aggressively reducing production-related emissions early and boldly can provide a significant competitive advantage for the sector and its workers. In recent years, Canada's oil and gas sector has made progress with respect to reducing emission intensity of production. Many leading firms in the sector have committed themselves to net zero by 2050, as have the provinces of Alberta, Newfoundland and Labrador, and British Columbia. However, ensuring long-term competitiveness of Canada's sector requires that it achieve significant and sustained reductions in absolute emissions on a pathway to net zero production by 2050. The Government of Canada has introduced incentives, regulations, and investments to encourage and support the oil and gas sector in this pursuit, This includes carbon pricing, investments in the Strategic Innovation Fund and the Clean Fuels Fund, and investment tax credits for carbon capture and sequestration and for the production of low-carbon hydrogen. Today, we are releasing the framework for Canada's emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. This cap is a key part of decarbonizing the sector on a path to net zero by 2050. It is critical to sustaining the competitiveness of Canada's industry over the coming decades.